In the previous video, we learned how to write a Docker file. We used a Python 3.9 base image from Streamlit and set up a working directory for our application. We also learned how to build a binary file for Streamlit, which can then be used to run Streamlit inside the Docker container. We then copied over the required app.py file and the requirements.txt file inside our working directory so that the application could be run. We finally installed all the required dependencies for the Docker container, which we will be building to run as a standalone application. Finally, we set up an entry point for the Streamlit application to run and make use of the app.py file containing the prediction logic to invoke the LLM and generate a summary for a user given text. Finally, we expose this application on port number 8501. The focus for this video now would be to set up an Elastic Container Registry and then using this file, build a container image and push that image onto that registry. So without further ado, let's just go back to our AWS console. Onto the AWS console, all we need to do is search for ECR, that is Elastic Container Registry. Once we do that, as you can see on my screen that I already have two repositories. So we need to create a new repository for the purpose of this video. So for this project, and that is we make a new repository called LangChain Streamlit. Since our application uses LangChain as well as Streamlit, this name seems intuitive. After we do that, we keep all other options as default. That is, we make this repository as private. We don't add any immutability or we don't scan the image. There's also an option for encryption settings. So we won't be making any changes to that. With the default settings on, we just go ahead and create the repository. After the repository has been created, you can see this message on the screen, and we just go ahead. And after clicking on that, we see that there is no image here because we haven't pushed an image yet. So the next important part would be to understand what commands do we need to use to actually containerize our application and push it to the repository. And that is, those commands should be found under view push commands. So these are the series of steps which we need to take to actually containerize our LLM powered application and push it into ECR. The first command would be used to log into your AWS account using your local laptop. But before you actually run this command, make sure that you already have AWS CLI installed. The next command would be used to build the Docker container. So from command number 2 all the way to command number 4, make sure that you first have AWS CLI installed and you have a Docker desktop running. That is a Docker engine running in your system. So just search for Docker desktop, and if it is not an application which you haven't installed, or if you haven't watched the previous videos, please just go ahead and do that. Install this application and first run it and then run the follow-up commands. So the next command which we would be running is the Docker build command. Since I'm on Apple Silicon, I'll be making changes to this command. I'll be also passing in a platform flag, which you will get to see in a minute. But for other users, let's say on Apple Intel or for Windows, you'll basically be using the same command. The next command would be used for tagging our image, and finally, we'll push our image. So after copying the first command, since I already have AWS CLI installed as well as a Docker desktop running, let me just go back to my terminal in VS Code and paste the first command. After I do that, I'm able to successfully log into my AWS account. So the next command which we would need is the Docker build command. As I just said, like we'll be making changes because I'm on Apple M1. I'll rather be using this command. That is Docker build x, then build, and I specify a platform flag. -T is used for tagging my image. So I'll basically name my image as LangChain Streamlit. Make sure that you give your image, that is LangChain Streamlit, the same name as your repository. Well, that is because once we build the image, you'll be able to successfully build the image, but at the time you push the image, AWS CLI will look for the same image name and the same repository name. And if there's a mismatch, it will not be able to push the image into that respective desired repository. So once we do this, make sure we have the same name, LangChain_Streamlit. It's the same name, and followed by a space and a dot, and then we press enter. So it has started to build the image. I've already built the image, so that is why it didn't take too much time for me. But if it is your first time, it will definitely take some time to build the actual image. The next thing is to actually tag the image. So let's just copy the third command. We go back to our terminal and we change the latest tag to version number 1, because that is the version which we have specified in our image when we were building it, and change the latest tag again to v1, and we press enter. So now we have tagged the image, and finally we need to push the image. So to push, we just copy the last command and we press v1, and finally the image is starting to get pushed. As you can see, it is 623 MB. That's not the final size of the image. The actual size will be a little lesser. So this will take some time to be pushed onto Elastic Container Registry. So in the next video, I'll show you, like after it gets pushed, in the next video, I'll show you how you can use this container image and run it locally on your system, and the challenges you will see when we actually try to make a connection with secrets manager inside the Docker container. We'll also learn about how you can actually resolve those issues and the policies and the roles you need to add to your account to make sure that the Docker container runs when we actually deploy it in production. So see you in the next video now.